We've been told our whole lives to hope for peace. Politicians promise it, religions preach it, activists march for it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Peace is a myth, not just because wars keep breaking out, but because humans may not be built for peace at all. Behind every treaty, every ceasefire, every end of history moment, violence waits in the shadows, ready to erupt again. And maybe that isn't a bug in the system. Maybe it's the system itself. So tonight, we're going to rip apart the illusion of peace, from philosophy to psychology to economics, and ask the question nobody wants to face. What if war isn't the exception, but the rule of human existence? Every generation convinces itself that this time will be different. After World War I, leaders called it the war to end all wars. 20 years later, the world was engulfed in an even bigger conflict. After World War II, we created the United Nations to keep peace. Yet since then, there have been wars in Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Ukraine. The list goes on. The Cold War was sold as a balance that would prevent global destruction, but it was anything but peaceful. It was a permanent state of militarized paranoia. Think about it. The last 3,500 years of recorded history, humans have had less than 300 years without war somewhere on Earth. Statistically, war is more normal than peace. So why do we cling to the myth? Because every empire, every government, every leader needs to sell the story that peace is just around the corner. It keeps people compliant, hopeful, and willing to fight for that promised future. But history tells us the opposite. Peace isn't coming. And deep down, we know it. The philosopher Thomas Hobbes believed humans are naturally fearful, selfish, and violent. Without strong control, he said, life would be nasty, brutish, and short. War, in Hobbes's view, isn't an anomaly. It's the natural state of humanity. If people are left unchecked, they fight. Not always because they hate each other, but because they fear each other. Fear of being attacked first, fear of losing resources, fear of annihilation. And that fear never goes away. Even today, nations stockpile nuclear weapons, not because they want to use them, but because they fear what might happen if they don't have them. War is the projection of Hobbes's basic truth onto the global stage. We fight not just for power, but because we're terrified of being powerless. But Hobbes's fear isn't the whole story. Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, went even darker. Freud believed humans are driven by two forces: eros, the life instinct, love, creation, survival, and thanatos, the death drive, the unconscious, desire for destruction, chaos, and return to nothingness. Why do kids smash their toys? Why do adults sabotage their own happiness? Why do nations go to war even when it's irrational? Freud would say, because beneath our will to survive, we also have a will to destroy. Think about how war is often framed, not just as defense, but as cleansing, as redemption through violence. From ancient tribes to modern superpowers, there's this twisted belief that destruction can reset the world, that war purges weakness and creates renewal. Maybe that's the death drive at work. And if Freud is right, then peace will always be temporary, because somewhere inside us, we crave the chaos of war. Friedrich Nietzsche offered another haunting perspective. He argued that humans define themselves through conflict. Man needs what is most evil in him, he wrote, for what is best in him. In other words, our creativity, our ambition, even our sense of morality come from having something to fight against. Enemies give us purpose. Without them, we collapse into nihilism. That's why societies that achieve stability often implode from within. Think of Rome in its decadence, or modern nations turning their anger inward when there's no clear external enemy. Nietzsche would say, peace is unbearable. Without struggle, we wither. So we invent enemies, whether it's rival nations, political opponents, or entire classes of people. War, in this sense, isn't a failure of peace. It's the price of meaning. Of course, there's also a much more practical reason peace never arrives. War is profitable. After World War II, the US military-industrial complex became one of the most powerful economic engines in history. Trillions are spent on weapons, surveillance, and defense. Millions of jobs depend on the continuation of war. As General Smedley Butler bluntly put it, war is a racket. Peace doesn't sell. Bombs do. Jets do. Cyber weapons do. And here's the catch. If peace actually broke out, entire economies would collapse. Imagine how many companies, governments, and careers depend on the constant threat of conflict. War isn't just human nature. It's a business model, and it's one the system can't afford to shut down. Optimists will point to statistics showing war deaths have declined since World War II. Steven Pinker even argues humanity is becoming less violent over time. But is that really peace? Or just war evolving? Today, war doesn't always look like tanks and trenches. It looks like drone strikes, cyber attacks, proxy conflicts, economic sanctions, and information warfare. We've moved from visible wars to invisible ones. But the underlying dynamic hasn't changed. Nations compete. People divide. Conflict persists. Calling this peace is like saying you're healthy because you're not bleeding, while cancer spreads quietly inside. Look around today. Ukraine and Russia locked in a war that reshaped global alliances. Israel and Iran escalating in ways that could ignite a regional or even global war. The US and China locked in a technological arms race that could decide the next century. And behind it all, AI is entering the battlefield. Algorithms that can decide who lives and who dies. Autonomous drones that can kill without a human pulling the trigger. Do you really think peace is around the corner when the tools of war are becoming smarter, faster, and less accountable? So where does that leave us? Hobbes said, we fight because we fear each other. Freud said, we fight because we secretly crave destruction. Nietzsche said we fight because we need enemies to give us meaning. And the modern world adds a final twist. We fight because war is profitable. Put all of that together, and the myth of peace collapses. Maybe there was never such thing as peace. Maybe it was always just a pause between battles. The real question isn't, when will we finally have peace? The real question is, if war is eternal, how do we live knowing that? Do we surrender to it, profit from it, or do we try, against all odds, to carve out islands of peace in a world built on conflict? Because whether we admit it or not, peace may be the greatest lie humanity ever told itself. So what do you think? Is peace possible? Or is it just a myth that keeps us chasing a dream while the world bleeds around us? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. And if you want more deep dives into philosophy, psychology, and the illusions shaping our world, hit subscribe, because the battle for truth has only just begun.